I woke up in a stranger's body, my heart pounding like I'd just sprinted through a storm. The world around me wasn't mine. Cobblestone streets, towering brownstones, and the distant hum of New York City traffic replaced my cramped studio apartment. Worst of all, I was now Elijah Brooks, a side character in a novel I'd read half-heartedly last week, destined to die in 3 chapters. My first thought was survival. The novel, Heirs of Ash, was a dark, sprawling drama about Julian Hawthorne, a 27-year-old billionaire heir with a tragic past and a heart walled off by grief. Elijah, the character I'd become, was a fleeting presence, a cheerful barista who sparked something in Julian before being unceremoniously killed in a plot twist. I wasn't ready to die, not when I'd just started figuring out my own life back in the real world. So, I decided I'd rewrite my fate, starting with avoiding Julian at all costs. Easier said than done. I worked at the Gilded Bean, a cozy coffee shop in Brooklyn where Elijah poured lattes for hipsters and suits alike. The air smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon, and the morning rush was in full swing when he walked in. Julian Hawthorne, all sharp cheekbones and stormy gray eyes, stood in the doorway like he owned the place. His tailored coat screamed money, but his expression screamed trouble. My hands froze on the espresso machine. The novel described him as magnetic, but it didn't prepare me for the way his gaze pinned me like a moth to a board. "Black coffee, no sugar," he said, voice low and deliberate, his eyes never leaving mine. I nodded, fumbling with the cup, my mind screaming, "This is where it starts. This is where I get tangled in his orbit." I handed him the coffee, avoiding eye contact, and muttered, "Have a good one." He didn't move. Instead, he leaned closer, studying me like I was a puzzle he needed to solve. "You're new," he said, though Elijah had worked here for years in the story. My stomach twisted. Was he already suspicious? I forced a smile, channeling every ounce of barista charm I could muster. "Just keeping things fresh," I quipped, turning away to wipe the counter. His presence lingered, heavy and inescapable, until he finally left. I exhaled, but the weight of his stare stayed with me. The next day, he was back. Same order, same intensity. By the 3rd day, I realized Julian wasn't just a customer. He was a predator circling his prey. The novel had painted him as obsessive, but I hadn't grasped how real it would feel. I tried to stay distant, but the story had other plans. One evening, as I closed up shop, a sleek black car idled outside. Julian stepped out, his silhouette framed by the neon glow of a nearby deli. "Elijah," he said, my name sounding like a command. "Let me drive you home." My pulse raced. In the book, this was the moment Elijah said yes, sealing his fate. I shook my head, clutching my backpack. "I'm good, thanks. I take the subway." His jaw tightened, a flicker of something dangerous in his eyes. Possessiveness, maybe, or desperation. "It wasn't a question," he said softly, but I bolted, slipping into the crowd before he could follow. I thought I'd escaped, but the novel's pull was relentless. At home, in Elijah's tiny apartment in Bed-Stuy, I found a note slipped under my door. "You can't run forever. Jay." My blood ran cold. This wasn't in the book. Julian was supposed to be brooding, not unhinged. I spent the night barricaded in, rereading my mental notes of the novel, searching for a way out. Elijah's death was tied to Julian's obsession, a twisted love that spiraled into tragedy. If I could avoid sparking that obsession, maybe I could survive. But Julian was everywhere. He showed up at the coffee shop daily, always watching, always waiting. One morning, he left a tip, a crisp $100 bill with a handwritten note. "Talk to me." I tore it up, but my hands shook. I wasn't just fighting Julian. I was fighting the story itself, its invisible threads pulling me toward him. I started noticing changes, small details in the world that didn't match the book. A coworker, Maya, a 30-year-old Latino with a sharp wit, mentioned Julian's family owned half the city, something the novel never detailed. Was the story rewriting itself because I was here? Desperate for answers, I tracked down a used bookstore in the village, hoping to find a copy of Heirs of Ash. The clerk, an older black woman with kind eyes, handed me a worn paperback. "Careful with this one," she said cryptically. "Some stories fight back." I laughed it off, but when I opened the book, Elijah's name was missing from the pages. My name, my real name, was there instead. I dropped the book, heart hammering. This wasn't just transmigration. Something bigger was at play. That night, I dreamed of Julian. Not the cold, calculated heir, but a younger version, vulnerable, laughing in a sunlit park. When I woke, my chest ached with an emotion that wasn't mine, Elijah's, maybe, or the story's. I couldn't keep running. If I was going to survive, I needed to confront Julian, to understand why he was so fixated on me. The next day, when he appeared at the coffee shop, I didn't hide. I met his gaze and said, "What do you want from me?" His smile was slow, almost tender. "Everything," he said, and I knew I was already in too deep. Julian's answer hung in the air, heavy with promise and threat. I wanted to laugh it off, to call him out for sounding like a cheesy villain, but the intensity in his eyes stopped me. This wasn't just a character following a script. Julian felt alive, unpredictable, and far too real. I spent the next few days dodging him, but it was like trying to outrun my own shadow. He didn't just show up at the coffee shop anymore. He was at the bodega where I grabbed my morning bagel, lingering outside my apartment building, even sitting in the back row of a poetry slam I attended with Maya. Each time, he didn't approach, just watched, his presence a constant pressure against my resolve. I started to wonder if I was the one obsessing, my every thought consumed by how to escape him. Maya noticed my paranoia. Over cheap beers at a dive bar in Williamsburg, she leaned across the sticky table, her dark eyes narrowing. "What's up with you and Mr. Moneybags? He's got you rattled." I hesitated, tempted to spill everything. Transmigration, the novel, my looming death, but it sounded insane even in my head. Instead, I shrugged and said, "He's just a creepy regular." She didn't buy it. "Elijah, I've seen guys like him. They don't stop until they get what they want. Be careful." Her words stuck with me, especially when I found another note taped to my mailbox. "You're fighting the wrong battle." No signature, but I didn't need one. I burned it in the sink, watching the flames curl around Julian's elegant handwriting. I wasn't just fighting him. I was fighting the story's momentum, its insistence on pulling us together. But why? In the novel, Elijah was a fleeting spark, not the center of Julian's world. Something had changed, and I needed to know what. I started digging into Julian's past, using Elijah's limited resources. The novel had glossed over his backstory: dead parents, a ruthless uncle, a fortune built on secrets, but I needed more. At the library, I scoured old newspapers and public records, piecing together fragments of the Hawthorne family. Julian's parents died in a car crash when he was 17, leaving him under the guardianship of his uncle, Victor Hawthorne, a real estate tycoon with a reputation for cruelty. There were whispers of scandals, missing funds, shady deals, but nothing concrete. One article mentioned a close family friend who vanished after the crash, a detail the novel never included. The deeper I dug, the more I felt Julian's presence, like he was watching me even now. One night, as I left the library, I spotted him across the street, leaning against a lamppost. The city buzzed around us, but his focus was absolute. I stormed over, adrenaline overriding fear. "Stop following me," I snapped. "This isn't a game." He didn't flinch. "You're the one playing games, Elijah. Running, hiding, digging into things you don't understand." His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, like a blade hidden in silk. "Why are you so afraid of me?" "Because I know how this ends." I blurted, instantly regretting it. His eyes sharpened, and for a moment, I thought he'd press me for answers. Instead, he stepped closer, his breath warm against the chilly night air. Then change the ending, he said, and walked away. His words haunted me. Could I change the story? I started testing the boundaries, making choices Elijah never would. I quit the coffee shop, hoping to break the pattern, and took a job at a community center in Harlem, teaching art to kids. The work grounded me, gave me purpose, but Julian found me there too. He didn't barge in or demand attention. He just sat in on a class one day, sketching quietly in the corner. The kids loved him, drawn to his quiet charisma, and I hated how natural he looked, how human. One evening, after the kids left, he stayed behind. "You're good with them," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard. I wanted to snap at him, to tell him to leave, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the way he held the sketchbook, his fingers smudged with charcoal, or the way his eyes didn't carry their usual intensity. "Why do you care?" I asked, genuinely curious. He hesitated, then said, "Because you remind me of someone I lost." My heart stuttered. The novel never mentioned this. Was it a lie, or was the story shifting again? Before I could press him, he stood and left, leaving his sketch, a portrait of me, achingly detailed, on the table. I couldn't shake the feeling that Julian wasn't just a character anymore. He was breaking the rules, just like me, and that terrified me more than anything. The portrait changed everything. I kept it hidden in my apartment, but I couldn't stop looking at it. Julian had captured something I didn't recognize in myself, Elijah's warmth, maybe, or my own fear. It felt like a confession, and I didn't know how to respond. I tried to focus on my new life at the community center, throwing myself into the kids' projects, but Julian's presence was a constant hum in the background. He didn't stalk me anymore, not overtly, but he'd show up at the center unannounced, bringing supplies or helping with repairs. The kids called him Mr. J, and I hated how easily he fit into their world. I hated how I didn't hate it. One afternoon, during a rare quiet moment, he cornered me in the supply room. "You're avoiding me again," he said, his voice low but not accusing. I clutched a box of paintbrushes, my back to the wall. "I'm trying to live my life," I said. "You should try it too." He laughed, a sound so unguarded it startled me. "You think I have a life outside of you?" The words were heavy, raw, and for the first time, I saw the cracks in his facade, the loneliness, the weight of his past. I wanted to ask about this someone he'd lost, but the novel's warning loomed in my mind. Getting close to Julian was a death sentence. Still, I couldn't resist testing the waters. "Who was it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "The person I remind you of." His face closed off, but not before I saw a flicker of pain. "Someone who deserved better," he said, and left me standing there, the air thick with unspoken truths. I needed answers, not just about Julian, but about the world itself. The bookstore clerk's warning echoed in my head, so I went back, hoping she could explain why my name was in the novel. She wasn't there, but I found a journal tucked behind the counter, filled with cryptic notes about transmigrants and narrative breaches. One entry mentioned a catalyst, someone who could rewrite a story by defying its rules. Was that me? Or was it Julian? I started noticing more glitches in the world. Street signs flickered, changing names for a split second. Conversations with Maya felt scripted, like she was reciting lines from the novel. One night, I caught her staring at me, her expression blank, before she snapped back to her usual self. "You okay, Elijah?" she asked, but her voice felt hollow. I was starting to wonder if anyone in this world was real. Julian, though, was different. He felt too alive, too unpredictable. One evening, he invited me to a rooftop gala at his family's Manhattan penthouse. I should have said no, but curiosity, and something deeper, pulled me in. The city sparkled below, a sea of lights, and Julian stood apart from the crowd, his eyes locked on me. "You don't belong here," he said, handing me a glass of wine. "Not with them. With me." I laughed, nervous. "You don't know me, Julian." But he stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I know you better than you think." My heart raced, not just from fear, but from the electric pull between us. I hated how much I wanted to believe him, how much I wanted to lean into his warmth. But the novel's shadow loomed. This was the moment Elijah fell for him, the moment that sealed his doom. I pulled away, spilling wine on the marble floor. "I can't," I said, and fled, ignoring his call after me. Back in my apartment, I found another note. "You're breaking my heart." I wanted to scream. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to feel anything for him. But I did, and that was the problem. The more I fought the story, the more it fought back, twisting my choices into its narrative. I started dreaming of Julian every night, his smile, his pain, his hands reaching for me. Each dream left me more confused, more drawn to him. Was I falling for him, or was the story forcing me to? I decided to confront the source, Victor Hawthorne, Julian's uncle. If anyone knew why the story was unraveling, it was him. I tracked him down to a charity event in Midtown, slipping in with a borrowed suit. Victor was everything the novel described: cold, imposing, with eyes that saw through you. I approached him, my voice steady despite my nerves. "I know about the family secrets," I lied, hoping to provoke a reaction. He smiled, chilling and sharp. "You're a curious one, Elijah. Be careful what you dig up. Some stories don't end well." His words sent a shiver down my spine. He knew something, maybe everything. As I left, I felt the world shift again, the edges of reality blurring. I was running out of time. Victor's warning was a spark in a powder keg. I knew I was close to unraveling the truth, but the closer I got, the more the world resisted. Streets rearranged themselves as I walked, leading me in circles. My apartment felt smaller, the walls pressing in. Even Maya started acting strange, her conversations looping back to Julian, like she was a puppet on the story's strings. I couldn't avoid him anymore. Julian found me at the community center, his face pale and drawn. "You're tearing everything apart," he said, his voice raw. "Why can't you just stay?" I wanted to scream that I didn't belong here, that I wasn't Elijah, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I said, "You don't know what's at stake." "Then tell me," he pleaded, stepping closer. His hand brushed mine, and for a moment, I forgot the novel, forgot my fear. I saw the boy from my dreams, the one who laughed in the sunlight, and I wanted to save him. But saving him meant risking myself. I pulled away, my heart pounding. "I can't be what you want," I said, but even as I spoke, I felt the story tightening its grip. That night, I found the journal from the bookstore in my bag, though I hadn't taken it. A new entry read, "The catalyst must choose, break the story or become it." I threw the journal across the room, but its words burned in my mind. Desperate, I confronted Julian at his penthouse. The city glittered below, a reminder of how small I was in this world. "Why me?" I demanded. "Why am I so important to you?" He looked at me, his eyes soft and broken. "Because you're the only real thing I've ever known," he said. "Everyone else, they're just shadows. But you fight. You feel." His words hit me like a punch. Was he aware of the novel too? Before I could ask, he kissed me, slow and desperate, and I let myself fall into it, just for a moment. The world didn't collapse. The story didn't end. But I felt it shift, like a page turning. I pulled back, breathless. "I'm not supposed to be here," I said, finally telling the truth. "I'm not Elijah. I'm someone else." He didn't flinch, didn't question it. "I don't care who you were," he said. "I love who you are." Those words broke something in me. I wanted to stay, to rewrite the story with him, but Victor's warning echoed in my head. I left, promising myself I'd find a way to end this without losing him or myself. The answer came in the bookstore, now abandoned, its shelves empty except for one book, Heirs of Ash. My name was still in it, but the pages were blank after Elijah's death. I realized then that I wasn't just a character. I was the catalyst, the one who could rewrite the ending. But every choice came with a cost. If I stayed with Julian, I risked becoming part of the story forever. If I broke it, I might lose him. I chose to fight. I tracked Victor down again, this time at his office in a glass tower overlooking the Hudson. "You know what I am," I said, no longer pretending. "Tell me how to end this." He laughed, cold and triumphant. "You can't. The story needs its tragedy. You're just delaying the inevitable." But I wasn't alone. Julian found me there, his presence a quiet strength. "Let him go," he told Victor, his voice steady. "He's not yours to control." Victor's smile faltered, and I saw it, the crack in the story's foundation. Julian wasn't just defying his uncle. He was defying the narrative itself. We ran, the city blurring around us. In a quiet park, under a canopy of autumn leaves, we stopped, breathless. "I don't know how this ends," I admitted, my hand finding his. He squeezed it, his smile soft but sure. "Then we'll write it together." The world didn't end. The story didn't collapse. But as we sat on that bench, the weight of his hand in mine felt like a new beginning. I didn't know if I'd ever get back to my world, or if I even wanted to. For the first time, I wasn't running from Julian or the story, I was choosing them. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to change everything.